Welcome into the NFL opening line report. Getting ahead of some of these line moves with Teddy Covers. I am Drew Martin each and every Monday morning right here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Happy Monday morning to you, Teddy. Welcome on in, buddy. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great, man. We had a good week in the NFL this past week. Swept the board for the clients. The free plays were good. I feel like this is one of the first weeks of the season where games started to jump off the page at me a little bit, and that's something we like to see in the NFL when you do the work and you start to feel the teams and feel the spots. So we're feeling pretty good today, Drew. But that being said, the minute you start to feel good, check yourself before you wreck yourself. F around and find out. It's not about, all right, well, now I see everything perfectly, and all right, well, I can just kick back and relax and just take my reads. No. You work harder when you're seeing things clearly because you want to make sure that you keep seeing things clearly. We'll see if we can do that again this week in the NFL action. What do we have? 14,000 views last week. Thank you all for taking time out of your day. This isn't a short form. This is a long form show. We appreciate all of the comments, all of the views, all the likes, and of course, you can follow and subscribe. Just click that bell, ding. You'll get access to all of the WagerTalk TV quality programming on a daily basis. There we go. I said my pitch. Let's roll.
Let's roll, guys. Thursday night. We're keeping our heads down. We're staying humble. We're looking to get on the right side of some of these line moves. 8:15 Eastern time, we get the Denver Broncos and the Kansas City Chiefs here, Teddy. 50 being the total. And, of course, we're talking the Thursday nighter here, guys. October 12th, minus 10 in the hook. That's what we're seeing, the Kansas City Chiefs as the home favorite. We get the Denver Broncos, have not looked pretty. Short week on the road against defending Super Bowl champions here, Teddy. But the ultimate equalizer, Chiefs, minus the 10 in the hook. What are we thinking in Kansas City Thursday night?
Sure, exactly. The ultimate equalizer is that point spread. It gets there all the time. But let's talk about these two. And, of course, with all of these games, I'm going to give you 4 sets of numbers. I'm going to give you the look-ahead line, which is the bettable line for this game from last week. So we can see how much the markets have reacted to a single week's results. I'm going to give you my powering number. We're going to talk about where the line opened, and we're going to talk about where the money has come since the opener, where it is right now. So for this game, my look-ahead line, the Westgate look-ahead line was Kansas City minus 10.5, exactly where the number is now. My powering number is a little bit higher. I'm at 12 on the Chiefs over the Broncos. The market's open 10.5 and 50. They're still 10.5 and 50. We're not seeing a whole lot of movement in terms of early action on this ball game. And I can understand why. Thursday night game, it's hard to bet against a double-digit dog on Thursday night, a divisional dog, despite Denver's. Russell Wilson's 5-14 as the Broncos starting quarterback. 5-14. He went 104 and 53 in Seattle. And, of course, this is a Denver rush defense that allowed 122, 350, 171, and 234 in their last 4 ball games. You can run against Denver. And that's a problem. And the Chiefs, who like to, you have to play nickel against the Chiefs loves to run against teams that are playing nickel, and Denver can't stop it. The Jets gained 6.6 yards per play yesterday, 7.3 yards per rush, and that's without an NFL starting caliber quarterback. The only reason Denver's in the game is just went 0-5 in the red zone. For Kansas City, look, the defense again came through yesterday. This is an under team right now. The pass defense is there. The cornerback play is there. The pass rush is there. Only 8 drives for each team, long, slow drives yesterday for KC. This is not explosive offensively. And Patrick Mahomes is saying it. Quote, there's a lot of young guys out there, and we're going to keep everybody moving and going in the right direction. I think by the end of the year, we're going to be dangerous because you're not going to know who's going to get those opportunities throughout the game. But for right now, this is a dink and dunk offense. Bull sitting here 50. Then again, do we trust Denver to stop anyone right now? Fun game to consider. No movement so far when we talk about early lines.
Good start to the NFL opening line report, guys. We got the Sunday slate coming up and seeing a London game. So we get the full kind of time frame here, Teddy, starting 9:30 a.m. and, of course, through the Sunday night football. We got a 13-game Sunday Sunday betting card with the Packers and the Steelers, do note, on buys this week. So 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 6:30 a.m. Pacific here, Teddy. Heading to the other side of the pond, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. We get Baltimore, the Ravens, versus the Tennessee Titans. 40 being the total. -3 in the hook. There is one -3 with juice out there. That's the Ravens as the quote-unquote road favorite, Teddy.
So I get to give a shout out here. Richie Brooklyn, at Richie Brooklyn Kid on Twitter, last night sent out a tweet, emergency betting alert, Tennessee +4. And he was right. The 4s are all gone. That being said, Dan, give us an emergency betting alert for this, if you would. I don't know, the 3.5s are going to be there for this game. All the early money's pouring in on the Tennessee Titans. Look, when we're talking about sitting around a key number of 3, you can get a +3.5, you grab it. So if you like Tennessee, I would do that now. That being said, look ahead line here was 4.5. Powering number for the game is Baltimore 4.5. Opened last night with 4/3.5s. And now we're looking at 3.5/3s. So we have already seen the markets adjust, but the Ravens injury report is not pretty. And Lamar Jackson against a good defense, well, it's not pretty. That said, interesting scenario here. All right. Baltimore flying to London today. We're not seeing that from Tennessee. They're going to go over on Thursday. And the reason the Ravens are flying over today, well, they played one previous game in London. They flew out on Thursday, and they lost 44-7. That's the worst loss of the entire John Harbaugh era, I believe. Quote, it's mostly driven by the fact we didn't do well, so we did the opposite this time. There's no data, and we looked into it to say when you should or shouldn't go out there, and what's the ideal thing. I say this kind of in jest. What's the science on that? As often is the case, they don't really know. That's just the way it is. But Baltimore is flying out early, which could put a halt on the money for Tennessee. That said, at +3.5, if you want to grab the Titans, I would do it sooner rather than later. And Baltimore snatched defeat from the jaws of victory yesterday. They're up 7. Nelson Aguilar, easy touchdown pass. Oops, he drops it. Then Lamar throwing a goal line interception in the fourth quarter. Can't do that. You need a field goal in that spot. Had they won the game, they would have swept all 3 of their AFC North road games. They'd be flat as a pancake here. That's not the case in this one. And look, they gained only 91 yards after halftime. They allowed 4 sacks. Lamar Jackson looked awful after the break. Quote, we had the Steelers beat. This is Lamar Jackson's quote. On offense, we had to find our groove. We didn't find it. The defense played a great game, kept stopping, kept giving us opportunities. We've just got to do what we do and finish drives. Yeah, Baltimore gave it away. Tennessee didn't give it away. They just weren't enough to get it yesterday. You know, they entered the game yesterday with the lowest red zone scoring, 29th red zone scoring TD percentage, 38%, and then struggled repeatedly in the red zone yesterday. Derrick Henry couldn't get the tough yard, settling for field goals. Most concerning for me, the run defense got gashed. Tennessee's run defense at they were 4th ranked against the run going in. They held 10 straight opponents to fewer than 100 yards, and they'd gone 20 games since they allowed a 100-yard rusher. And then yesterday, they got absolutely gashed by Indy on the ground. Mike Vrabel. Seemed like whenever they needed to run, they did. We watched short runs and turn into big plays. It's certainly frustrating. Our goal on defense is to set the edge, build a wall, then swarm and tackle. We just weren't consistent doing that. Worth noting, we're seeing an emerging home-road dichotomy for Tennessee. They're 2-0 at home. They've yet to win away from home in this game, thousands of miles away from home across the pond in London.
Guys, if you have any questions, feel free to fire away in the comments below. We'll answer them at the end of the show. We'll also answer any on next week's show as well. Teddy, I got one for you right here at the top. This is the 3rd straight London game. Now, Jacksonville isn't playing in it. You talked about traveling over there. Are you noticing anything as being a sports bettor in the NFL and doing this successfully for as long as you have? Are you noticing any changes you're making in your handicap when handicapping the London games or any Europe games?
So I had a big ticket, a 5% big ticket play on Jacksonville yesterday, and I had a 5% big ticket play on Jacksonville the previous week as well. Part of the 100% perfect start to the season with the strongest plays in the NFL, 5-0 since the Super Bowl in that regard. So I thought that the Jags were A, undervalued, and B, they're ready to play in London. They go there every year. So Jacksonville, for me in particular, was a team that I was looking to back across the pond. With the exception of the Jags' familiarity with London, there's no prevailing trends. There really isn't. It's a game where both teams are road teams in theory, or a neutral site affair. There's no home crowd edge. There's always a large crowd there. It's not like they're playing in front of nobody. So it's a good venue, whether they're playing at Hotspur or a Wembley. But from a betting standpoint, there's no, all right, bet it this way or bet it that way every time. It's a case-by-case basis. There's no prevailing theme for teams going to London, with the exception, like I said, of the Jags, although I thought, the fact they play there every year and the fact they went in there in just a perfect spot. I'm a big Jaguars fan. Jaguars get Christmas cards from me this year. Back-to-back big ticket cashes.
Good stuff, Teddy. As we got 253, 254 up next, guys, we're going down in rotation order, numerical order, that is. 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific kick, Washington at Atlanta. We get 42 at most shops being the total here, 41.5 at some, -2 in the hook. That's the Atlanta Falcons at home in Mercedes-Benz. Their quarterback, Desmond Ridder, maybe played his best game in the NFL last week here, Teddy. What are we thinking with the Commanders and the Falcons?
Oh, by far. I mean, Ridder was as good yesterday as I've seen him since college. Look at line here, Atlanta -1.5. My powering number has the Falcons 3.5. The markets are right in between 2/2.5. So it looks like I'm a little bit higher on Atlanta, or maybe I'm lower on Washington. It's probably lower on Washington. Washington just gave up 5 plays of 25 yards or more against Chicago. They allowed an NFL high 16 plays of 25 yards or more this year. The secondary has been really bad. The rookie cornerback, Emmanuel Forbes, is struggling. You want to talk about a dumb game plan? Here are the Bears, who are very dicey defensively. Sam Howell dropped back 60 times, 51 passes, 5 sacks, 4 runs. Leading rusher, Brian Robinson, the only guy who touched the ball, to run the ball except for Howell, 6 rushing attempts. 60 pass drop packs, 6 rushing attempts. That's on the coaching staff. They were booed off the field at halftime again. They've lost 3 in a row. I want no part of Washington right now. And again, this is a defense, last year got better as the season progressed. The year before, better as the season progressed. Last year, the defense after 5 games was 25th in points and 17th in yards, and it finished 7th and 3rd. Much better as the season progressed. Haven't seen that so far this season. Washington's not a team I'm excited about, but the markets aren't excited about laying points with Atlanta. Atlanta's a team we saw yesterday. They just can't afford to make any mistakes at all. They got one, they were in field goal range for halftime. They got a stupid penalty for roughness, and now they punted, and then the Texans get a field goal before halftime instead, and the whole rest of the game, can Atlanta find a way to win? Now, yeah, it was Ritter's best game as a pro. 28 passes, 329 yards, no interceptions. Second fourth quarter comeback this season. His quote, "We proved we can stay calm, we can stay collected." That was one of my first true 2-minute drives. I didn't try to rush anything. I didn't try to force anything, just stay within my game. Yeah, Atlanta's still a dicey offensive team right now, not an easy team to lay points with. And maybe my powering number for this game is too high. That said, we're not talking about the Falcons' defense, which has held their opponent to a single touchdown each of the last 2 weeks, and potentially could have some success here against a Washington offense that just isn't particularly effective. The one game against Philly, but that was it from Washington offensively so far this season.
Next game up, we get the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears, Teddy. A little battle here in the NFC North Division. We're seeing the Vikings -3-point road favorites, 46.5 being the total. Vikings at the Bears. What are we thinking from the Windy City?
So look ahead line here, Minnesota -4.5. My powering number is 2.5, and right now it's sitting on the key number of 3. And I'm debating if this is emergency betting alert worthy, because we have seen one leading indicator book already go down to 2.5. I'm not convinced the broader market's going to do that. That being said, Dan, let's be safe, not sorry, with this emergency. If you like the Bears, bet them right now. The +3s are out there. I'm not convinced they're going to be there. I'm not convinced we're going to see any buyback on Minnesota this week. And Chicago's coming off, obviously, their best game of the season, and now they have extra time to prepare for the Vikings. So if you like +3, that's one to grab sooner rather than later. And of course, Minnesota's 1-4 now. Since 1990, 161 teams have started 1-4. and 150 of those teams have missed the playoffs. 11 of them have made the playoffs. So it's possible 7% of teams in Minnesota's range have made the postseason. But Justin Jefferson's hurt now. They have a right hamstring injury, and much of the money coming from Chicago may be in relation to the Jefferson injury. We don't know how serious it is for Minnesota just yet. He did limp slowly to the sideline. Vikings lead the league in turnovers, 8 lost fumbles, 12 turnovers overall. Quote, we need to protect the football. We need to make plays when they are there. Yeah, they've been saying that for a while. And of course, the team that went 11-0 in one-score games last year is now 0-4 in one-score games this season. Minnesota coming back to earth. And Kirk Cousins' name. They've shown fight. They're just not good enough. Bears ran the football last week. DJ Moore had 3 touchdown catches. Justin Fields at 9.7 yards per pass attempt. Can they do it again? Look, the offense has been excellent. 6 of the last 8 quarters. Only that second half against Denver was bad. And this team, if any team needed a win, Chicago needed to win. Well, Carolina needs one now. But, DJ Moore after the game, we just needed a win, get the mojo going in our favor. Felt amazing to get the first win over that Belts. Greg Stroman, defensive quarterback. We harped all week on finishing. We do great things as a team. We played well for 3 strong quarters last week. Just building off that, and that was a message. Build off that and finish. Chicago. The question is, and I want to see this week if we're going to get the quotes out of the Bears locker room that we're focused on this game, not celebrating last week's game. But if I'm playing this game, it would be the Bears. I want no part of Minnesota. It's chalk.
257, 258 up next, guys. We get the Seattle Seahawks and the Cincinnati Bengals. Another key number here, guys, is we're seeing the Bengals -2.5 as the short home favorite. 46 being the total here, Teddy. Seahawks at Bengals. Next game up.
Look headline here, Cincinnati -2.5. My powering number, Cincinnati -2. Last night, I'll call it a split market. There were 2.5s, and there were some 3s out there. The 3s are all gone this morning, and I don't think we're going to see them again. This is not an emergency betting alert situation. If you like the Seahawks. And Seattle, of course, coming off a bye week. They blew out the Giants, and then they had the bye week. And, the only lost game, L.A., week 1, where they played an awful second half. They had, 11 sacks last week. Witherspoon had the 97-yard interception return. Pete Carroll after the game, quote, we're just getting going. We're just putting it together. A night like this for our defense to play that explosively, I can't remember seeing double-digit sacks. That said, they had one good offensive drive in that ballgame. The offense continues to be hit or miss for the Seahawks. My clients and I cashed with Cincy yesterday. It was the ultimate spot, and a field goal. I thought it was just too cheap to leave the Bengals alone. And they entered the game at or near the bottom of every offensive category. No first half touchdowns all year. They scored 3 touchdowns yesterday. That's as many as they scored from the offense all season long. But I don't have a buy sign on Cincy off that win. I'll tell you what, they were gashed for big plays on the ground again. And Jamar Chase was ridiculous yesterday. He won the game. But this team went 0-3 on 4th downs. The offensive line did not control. They only gained 3.1 yards per rush. The running game really was dicey. They allowed 6.5 yards per carry. That's not the type of, especially against Arizona when they're trailing. These aren't great numbers for Cincinnati. I cashed a ticket with the Bengals yesterday, and I'm more concerned about the Bengals today than I was yesterday, even though Burrow was healthy. It was the best that Burrow's been all year. But the markets are now buying Cincinnati. I might take my one with the Bengals and look the other way.
Teddy, next game up, we got a shout out here to Mike Campbell in the chat box. Do you just ride the 49ers till proven otherwise? That leads us into our next game here, guys. 259-260, San Francisco 49ers, Cleveland Browns, 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific kick here. We are seeing the Niners -4.5, -5. They have taken money off the open here, Teddy. 39 being the total. So we get the Niners at the Browns. Next game up, Teddy.
Of course, San Fran's taking money. Off of what they did to what was supposed to be a competitive team in Dallas. How can they not take money? And of course, the only they're 5-0 straight up. They're 4-1 ATS. The only non-cover came by a half a point against the Rams. So there's an enormous betting bandwagon with San Fran. But conceptually, Mike, you want to be on San Fran for all of this run. If you haven't been betting them every week, This is the highest power rated team in the NFL right now. I got them a full field goal better than the number 2 team in the NFL right now, according to my power rating numbers. So we're looking for a value squad. San Fran isn't it. You might find spots to take San Fran. But from a spot perspective, I can't say I love this one. Coming off that huge national TV win against a team they wanted to put a beat down on, and now traveling east for an early start game. So spot-wise, don't love this for San Fran. Don't know this is the week for San Fran. That said, look ahead line here, 49ers -3. My powering number, 49ers -6.5. And it's kind of in between. We've seen some San Fran money from the open. I'm seeing 4.5 out there as the prevailing number. Total 39. And that's worth noting too, because Cleveland's defensive number, the look ahead was 41.5 for this total. Cleveland's defensive numbers are ridiculous. They're unsustainable. They had the DTR game against Baltimore. They got bombed. But prior to that, the D had been on the field for 50 plays a game. They weren't ahead and giving up a touchdown. I mean, it was like numbers that clearly weren't sustainable. So we're seeing a team being priced as elite defensively when the defensive numbers are too good. They still have injuries. Myles Garrett is banged up even before the bye. The center, Ethan Pocic, was on crutches. That's a big concern for me. And San Fran, certainly not a team I'm looking to fade. Again, they continue to score touchdowns in the red zone. 4 touchdowns and 5 red zone tries again last week. 175 rushing yards, 9.7 yards per play. I mean, this is as impressive a performance against a good team as we've seen any team have all year. They won 15 straight regular season games. Worth noting, 16-2 ATS their last 18 at home. That's something that I should have been pointing out and haven't been. But San Fran's home field has been ridiculous of late. But here we are. We're going into week 6. If you haven't made money with the 49ers yet, it's hard to make money with them right now. From a value standpoint, don't love the spot. Don't love the matchups. Don't love any part of this game for San Fran. That said, I know that I trust Cleveland. Not a game I'm likely to bet.
Teddy, next game up, we get New Orleans and Houston, 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific kick here with the Saints. Short road favorites. Granted, not a long trip, but -1.5, -1 at some shops. 41.5 being the total. So we get the Saints at the Texans. Next game up, Teddy.
Yeah, and so let's start with this. Look ahead line here was pick'em for New Orleans and Houston. My powering number has the Saints -1. The markets were at 2.5 last night, and we have seen some Houston money. I don't know that we're going to see enough Houston money to get a flip of favorites here. Therefore, there's no emergency betting on it. We've also seen over money in this ballgame. The market's already moved on it, and I thought about EBing the total for this as well. But we're sitting at 40, 40.5, 41. Now we're at 41.5. So we've seen a little bit of over money and a little bit of Texans money from the open last night. Look, the Saints played their best game of the season. They got the right team at the right time. Alvin Kamara, quote, anytime you find yourself in a lull or a rut, you got to find a way to fast. Sometimes you got to get in those ruts and it compounds and it starts to turn into your identity. That's the one thing we didn't want to happen because we knew what our identity is. We kind of got a chance to put it on display today. This is the team that entered the NFL, they entered the game dead last in red zone efficiency and then went 3 for 3 in the red zone against the Patriots. Their offensive playmakers, Foster Moreau, first TD of the year. Alvin Kamara, first TD of the year. Chris Olave, first TD of the year. Michael Thomas, season best in receiving yards. Saints scored 30 points for the first time since last October. Positive signs, and of course the defense for New Orleans continues to be elite. And that might be a problem for the Texans, but their defense is starting to force turnovers every week. The Mecco Ryans, I say this every week, bet on coach. Game on the line yesterday. C.J. Stroud was money on the road. And not a field goal. They needed a touchdown. He led what should have been the game-winning touchdown drive. The defense couldn't hold it. That said, +2 turnovers still lost. They didn't turn the ball over again on offense with a rookie quarterback. Stroud, 177 pass attempts without an interception. That's the NFL record for a rookie, held by Dak Prescott. Dalton Schultz. We had an urgency on that last drive that we had. That obviously, we need to do a better job early in the game. We can't be kicking field goals all day long. Yesterday, Houston kicked field goals, ended up biting them in the end. Good game here. I'm surprised the over money's come in. Both of these teams, in my mind, are under teams, New Orleans in particular.
He's Teddy Covers. I'm Drew Martin. This is the NFL Opening Line Report. You can smash that like button if you're liking the content, and feel free to comment below. Let us know what you're looking to bet, where you agree, where you disagree. All is welcome here, guys. Shout out to Ray in the chat box. He made it live, usually watching on replay. Guys, we're going live 1 o'clock Eastern time, 10 a.m. Pacific, each and every Monday right here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel, going down in rotation order using the WagerTalk live odds screen. We got next game up, 263, 264, Indianapolis Colts, Jacksonville Jaguars, Teddy. We're seeing the Jags returning from the London game, -4.5 at home, 45.5 being the total. And of course, the Colts, Anthony Richardson or Gardner Minshew at quarterback. Remember earlier in the OLR report, you're talking about, your handicap maybe not changing all that much, but I'll throw it over to you. Colts and Jaguars here, Teddy.
Look headline here, Jaguars -5.5. Powering number, Jaguars -5.5. Markets opened last night, 4.5, 5. They decided 4.5 is the better number. That's where we are today. There's even a 4 starting to pop up. A single 4 on the WagerTalk live odds screen. That doesn't mean that we won't see more. Total 45.5 at the opener. Still sitting in that range as we speak. So it looks like it's going to be Gardner Minshew again. And there's no, from a powering standpoint, there really is no difference between Minshew and Richardson. Marcus didn't move last week. They're not going to move this week based on it. And Richardson runs the offense effectively. Minshew runs the offense, even though it's very different. I don't love Indy's pass defense. The offensive line's really cobbled together. But, when you talk about trusting a backup quarterback, you trust a backup quarterback when you let him go for it on 4th and 1 in field goal range twice, which is what they did. And boy, that defensive line is capable of dominating. They only went 1 for 5 in the red zone and still won by a touchdown. They gained 7 yards per play with a backup QB. They snapped a 7-game home losing streak. And the early indication is that the Richardson injury, shoulder, is likely to keep him out. And, of course, they got Jonathan Taylor back last week, although it was Moss, who was a dominant running back for them. We fight. Every time we come on the field, we're going to give it our best. We got a bunch of dogs on both sides of the ball. We play complementary football. We're pretty good. I got a small buy sign on Indy right now, despite my concerns about them. And Jacksonville, this is not their game. Jacksonville went, here's the quote. Doug Peterson. We as a team, I think, are figuring out that we're very capable of winning these type of games. It's big. We came over here 1-2. We're going back 3-2. So huge road trip, win both games, culminate with a nice upset over Buffalo. And now you get to go back home and, look at us. We're feeling good. That's a concern for me. And, of course, the Jags offense is still herky-jerky. It's a janky. They had 2 strip sacks, fumbles from Trevor, both times in Buffalo territory. Cam Robinson came back, and the offensive line still got destroyed in that game. These are problems for Jacksonville moving forward, especially against Indy's strong defensive front.
Let's head to South Florida up next here, Teddy, for the last 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific game. 265, 266, Carolina Panthers, Miami Dolphins. We're seeing the Dolphins -2 touchdowns pretty much across the board here, guys. -14, 48 being the total. We get the 0-5 Panthers up against the Miami Dolphins sitting at the top of the AFC East Division, 4-1. What are we thinking here in Hard Rock Stadium?
Look headline here, Miami -11.5. My powering number, Miami -14. The markets are Miami -14. And total sitting at 48 really hasn't moved since the opener. So we're seeing a 2.5 point from the look ahead to the current. And the Dolphins have a pretty big betting bandwagon. And of course, Miami, look, Tua threw a 102-yard pick six, and the team just brushed it off. Nothing. They scored a touchdown on the next 2 drive. They have the fewest punts in the NFL this season. They didn't punt until the 4th quarter yesterday. 9.7 yards per rush in the game against the Giants, and 9.7 yards per pass, and 9.7 yards per play. By far the number 1 offense in yards per play this year. They were -3 in turnovers. It didn't matter. They have the most yards, 524 yards yesterday. They have 2,568 yards for the season on offense. That's the most in NFL history. And, oh, by the way, the defense, 14 quarterback hits, 7 sacks last week. You want Carolina against this team? I don't. Panthers allowed Detroit 4-4 in the red zone touchdowns. They were -3 turnovers. Defense forced none. Secondary has injuries. Offense is struggling with a rookie QB. Bryce Young. Doesn't matter what success I had in college. I'm no different from anyone else on the team at this point. 2 picks yesterday and 2 more picks. 6 turnovers for Bryce Young in 4 starts so far this season. Frank Reich. We knew they had an explosive offense, but made the game much too easy for them. They did. Carolina's 0-5. Their season's over already. They know it. Veteran head coach, young team. I think it's a tough spot for them, but you're not getting any point spread bargains with Miami anymore. Not with their statistical profile. And this one's not coming up. And it's definitely worth noting. I watched the second half of Dolphins-Giants closely. I wanted to see what Miami was going to do with the lead again. Remember, they had that big blowout game where they scored 70 against. And, boy, they were real lackadaisical. There was no urgency in the fourth quarter. They were up 18. They were just like, let's kill the clock. Let's kill the clock. They started punting the football. And that was a little bit of a concern for me if Miami's the type of team we want to lay 2 touchdowns with. Because I want a team that's, when they're up 21, balls to the wall, let's go up 28. Dolphins did not show that yesterday. They showed fat and happy, up 18 fourth quarter, which I don't blame them. It's just a mentality. But Miami didn't have that killer mentality yesterday. It stood out to me.
Love that, Teddy. I mean, I usually think about that in college football, but you do that in the NFL. You've noticed a difference here with teams because it doesn't happen all that much in the NFL, getting 2 touchdown favorites. But you do notice in the past couple of years, different teams handling that differently.
So good teams are going to blow out opposing teams on occasion. I'm very interested in watching how good teams perform in the second half of the big league. Yes, yeah. I do that. I watch some of the blowouts instead of some of the more competitive. Again, I got the 3 TVs in here. I'm clicking back and forth the whole time. So I'm watching most of the games on any given Sunday. But I pay a fair bit of attention to teams with a big lead in the second half to see how they look. And Miami looked really flat yesterday.
Yeah, I feel like that's a sharp call there, guys, watching the blowouts. I like to do that as well, Teddy. We got any given Sunday, and every Sunday we're doing the opening line report here. With the next game up, Teddy, we head to the 4 o'clock kicks Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. Detroit Lions, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Battle of 2 first-place teams here, Teddy. We got -3. That's the Lions. There is a -3 in the hook out there. That is the Lions as the road favorite, 44 being the total. Teddy, I got a stat I want to throw out there about Jared Goff, the quarterback here for the Lions. I don't think a lot of people realize how good he has been against the spread. 43-24 against the spread run going back 5 years. Hey, he's accurate. He can throw the deep ball. I don't know if he's getting enough credit here, Jared Goff, for the Detroit Lions. Throw it over to you. Lions at Buccaneers heading to the Sunshine State, Teddy.
Yeah, I'll talk about this game in just a sec. I do want to give you guys a promo code. TC10 at checkout will get you $10 off any daily package or a 1-day pass. It's only good this weekend. It's good for Saturday or Sunday, but obviously you're here for the NFL. Use it on Sunday. Use promo code TC10. You get my entire NFL package, $10 off at checkout. So take advantage of that. So I think we had this discussion like a week or 2 ago where I'm like, I thought that Detroit, when you're looking at the NFC, it's Dallas, San Francisco, Philly, and I thought Detroit deserved to be in the conversation. And then the season started, and I wasn't sure if Detroit should be in that conversation. And now we're seeing that Detroit should definitely be in that conversation. Look, headline here, Lions -3. My powering number only 2.5, but that's because of Tampa. Opened last night 3 -20/3.5 and 45. And it's mostly 3s right now, but there are 3.5s out there. It's a split line as we speak. Whenever there's a split line, take advantage as a bettor. If you're laying, lay -3. If you're taking, take +3.5. The split lines around 3s don't last that long. It's available right now. So whichever side you like in this game, now's the time to shop around and buy it, in this bettor's opinion. When we talk about Detroit, and some of the good things they're doing right now, I'm just going to start with this. All right. They scored 27 points in back-to-back first halves. They were missing Amon-Ra St. Brown, supposedly their best receiver, and their number 1 back in Jahmyr Gibbs yesterday. Didn't matter. Dan Campbell, these guys who've been asked to step up are making plays. We're not getting any drop off. Detroit's 12-3 straight up their last 15 games. Offensive tackle Taylor Decker is no secret. We've been playing good football for 15 games. They got Jameson Williams back from that suspension. And again, it wasn't much. He had 2 catches for 2 yards and made a block. Dan Campbell. That's all I expected. He'll get a few more plays next week. Detroit's bet on. Tampa might be bet on too. They're off the bye. They beat the Saints before the bye. Baker Mayfield, let's give him credit. They found Tampa hasn't been pretty to watch, but the defense has been there. They've been extraordinarily resilient. There's a little bit of swagger. They got playmakers, both sides of the ball. Chris Godwin, Evans. And Baker's, they're bought into Baker. Godwin's quote. You see him making plays, scrambling, taking some big shots, popping back up. That's infectious for the team. It makes the offensive line want to block more. Makes us want to run our routes a little bit harder and give him a chance because we know he's going to play as much as he can to give us a chance. This is a first-place team in the NFC South. They're home dogs coming off a bye against a Lions team that played really, really well at home. Fat and happy, maybe off the 2 straight wins. Interesting game here. Not sure how I'm going to play.
New England Patriots, Las Vegas Raiders up next here, guys. -3. That's what we're seeing the Raiders at home. 42.5 being the total. Patriots at Raiders from Las Vegas.
Yeah, and obviously the Raiders play tonight on Monday Night Football. If we have time at the end of the show, we'll talk about that real quick. But look headline here was Raiders Pick'em, which says how much the markets are crashing on New England right now. My powering number before the Raiders play tonight is 2.5. And the market's pretty much 3s now across the board. They're worse than 2.5. They're not there anymore. The Patriots offense has scored 3 points in the last 2 weeks, and they've given up offensively. While the offense is on the field, they've given up 21, 3 defensive touchdowns. They went 1 of 14 on third downs yesterday, 0-2 on fourth, 3.1 yards per play. The defense forced 0 turnovers. The offense gave it up thrice. Second worst shutout loss in team history. They're 1-4 for the first time since 2000. Belichick says basically the same thing the second straight week. It was a poor performance here today, plain and simple. We got to start over and find a way to get back on track. Mac Jones benched in the fourth quarter for the second straight game, but they have no other option. Bailey Zappe's not the guy. Quote, everyone's frustrated. Of course, we're frustrated. At the end of the day, you have to turn that into action. The markets are absolutely crashing on the Patriots. They haven't scored 20 points in any more than 20 points in any game yet this season. The offense has 10 turnovers. The Saints entered the NFL last in red zone efficiency, and they went 3 for 3 against the Patriots inside the 20 yesterday. And of course, Patriots, they're missing Matt Judon. Their rookie quarterback, Christian Gonzalez, is hurt. Yeah, the market's crashing on New England right now. Although they might crash on the Raiders, depending on how they look tonight. The Raiders look good tonight. This line will go up higher than a field goal. If you're betting Vegas on Monday Night Football, maybe a parlay. We talk about making 2 bets. I was told in no uncertain terms from my friends or that you can't be making 2 bets. You parlay the 2 of them together. That's a positive X Nation parlay. So you want to parlay the Raiders tonight and next week, little 2-teamer. It's one that in theory would have positive expectation if the Raiders win tonight or look good tonight. They'll be favored by more than this 3 against the Patriots team that the markets are absolutely crashing.
NFC West battle up next. Arizona Cardinals, LA Rams. We're seeing the Rams -6. There is a -6 in the hook popping up right now. 47 being the total. Cardinals at Rams from Los Angeles, Teddy.
Yeah, look at line here was Philly. LA -5. I said Philly because I had the Eagles yesterday against the Rams, which was a sweat and a half, even though they were the right side. Anyhow, look at line here with LA -5. My powering number has LA -7.5. And the market's sitting at 6 right now. So I'm a little bit off market. Maybe a little bit higher on the Rams or a little bit lower on the Cardinals. And Dobbs had his first kind of rough game. He was 1 of 4 quarterbacks with 200 yards passing and 300 yards rushing in every game, along with Hurts and Mahomes and Fields as the other 3. But he threw his first interception, 138 pass attempts, and then he threw another one that should have been dropped, and he had a rough game. He wasn't good in the fourth quarter. Dobbs game came down to fourth quarter execution. Obviously, first, second, and third quarter execution is important, but fourth quarter execution is critical. I like Arizona's mentality. This team fights hard. They're fighting every game. They're fighting for 4 quarters. But even though they have exceeded expectations from a point spread perspective, they're not very good. They know they're not very good. They're not winning games. They got 1 win on the season. The Rams, they got Cooper Kupp back. And when you have Kupp and Atwell and Nakua and Higbee, offensive playmakers, and an elite quarterback. Last week in Indy, they blew a 23-0 lead in the second half. This week, the offense didn't cross midfield after halftime. So there are some concerns about, with all the playmakers, and as much as we like Stafford, and as much as that offensive line's been okay, there are concerns there. Cornerback Akello Witherspoon, this is the bet on quote right here. Quote, I think we're too talented of a group to keep losing these type of games, coming up close against good opponents. It's time to start cashing in on W's. I think we have the group that can do it. So you can tell which way I'm leaning on this one, at least initially.
Next game up, Philadelphia Eagles, New York Jets. We are seeing the Eagles -6 in the hook as the road favorite, 42.5 being the total. Oh, man, this is an interesting handicap here, Teddy. I mean, the Eagles rolling at least straight up wise, and the Jets playing some better football of late. What are we thinking here in New Jersey, I should say?
Philadelphia look-ahead line, -6.5. My powering number, -6.5. The market's -6.5. Total, open 42. We've seen some over money in this ball game. Dan Alexander were talking to I before the show, and I were talking to the producer behind the scenes. The man who's nice enough to provide all these graphics, or insert all the graphics and give us all the emergency betting alerts and all that kind of stuff. And we both had the same thought. Philly's 5-0 this year, and they haven't played a good game yet. They really haven't. Not one. The red zone offense is a problem. We saw that in Tampa. We saw it again here. They settle for field goals. You know, they have the brotherly shove that's working nearly 95% of the time. And they used it yesterday before halftime to get a crucial touchdown in the fourth quarter to clinch out the W. You know, strong play in the trenches for Philadelphia. Offensive line, defensive line. The D allowed only 95 yards on 5 drives in the second half. No plays run on their side of the field. But they have some concerns in the secondary. They ended the game ranked 30th in passing touchdowns allowed. They give up 2 more against L.A. Slot corner remains an issue. 3 different players tried the slot on Sunday, and it wasn't very good. And they couldn't reach the end zone in the second half. The defense, good enough. But again, Philly still hasn't played a good game, and they're 5-0. That's odd. You know, you don't see that often. They have a brutal schedule coming up. Look, the Jets went 0-5 in the red zone. They still won by double digits. They gained 6.6 yards per play, 7.3 yards per rush. Breece Hall, a difference. You know, and of course, that was a very meaningful game for them with Nathaniel Hackett, their offensive coordinator, getting ripped publicly by Sean Payton, Robert Saleh. You know, it feels good to get a win in this league against anyone, but it was a special game for Hack, obviously being here a year ago. 400 yards on them, put up 31 points. Can they do it again against Philly? Interesting game. Don't know where I'm going to go with Jets Eagles. One I'm going to sleep on for a day or two before we reconsider it.
Sunday night football and Monday night football to end it here, guys. New York Giants, Buffalo Bills. We're seeing the Bills -14. Actually, anywhere from -13.5 to -14.5 is available right now as we're talking Monday morning. 45 being the total. Battle for New York Giants and Bills, Teddy.
Yeah, well, we talked about Dolphins, Panthers, where the look-ahead line was 11.5, and then the 1 week's results made it 14 as the opener. Look-ahead line here was 12.5. My powering number is 15. The markets were 14.5 last night. It was getting bet up before this show started. There were 14.5, 15. There were 15.5s out there. And over the course of the last, 20 minutes or 25 minutes or so, someone's come in there and said, we want the Giants. Not this better, but somebody did. And now it's down to 14. It's not, there were some 13.5s out there. They will get bought back up immediately. If you like Buffalo, there's 2 books out there right now with 13.5. Go grab them. They're not going to be there, I don't think. And look, the Giants got a 102-yard pick 6, and the offense got a couple of field goals. This is the worst offensive line in the NFL right now. The defense showed quit in that game. Giants have led for 18 seconds through 5 games. And the same quote, Brian Dable. We got to figure out a way to protect him better. Danny Dimes hurt. The money's coming on Buffalo, on the Giants right now because Danny Dimes has probably been upgraded. He got knocked out of the game yesterday, and I'm assuming that there's been some report that's come out in the last couple of minutes or in the last half hour or so that says that, I just see him as questionable with a neck injury. But again, he took 10 sacks against Seattle last week, and then yesterday, 7 sacks more. Saquon Barkley's hurt. Andrew Thomas on the offensive line is hurt. Danny Jones is a bad neck now. I don't like, they were +3 in turnovers against Miami. They had a 150-yard pick six. Markets are crashing on the G-men in a sense, but, Buffalo not coming off a good showing in London against the Jaguars, but they got banged up in that game. They were complaining about the surface at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. We're playing on concrete. Matt Milano, defensive team leader, he suffered a serious injury first quarter. Daquan Jones got hurt. Karen Johnson got hurt. Jack Lawson didn't play. Christian Benford didn't play. This is a team that had 200-yard receivers, gained 7.2 yards per play, went 3 of 3 in the red zone, and still lost straight up as a favorite of more than a field goal. Defensive injuries for Buffalo may be a concern here. And the Bills at times have been very trustworthy in this big favorite role in recent years. Sometimes they come into these games fat and happy, but coming off a loss, I'm not convinced that'll be the case here.
Quick look at the Monday nighter for October 16th here. Dallas Cowboys, LA Chargers, Teddy. -2. That's the Cowboys. There is a -2.5 out there as the road favorite. 49.5 being the total. Cowboys at Chargers to end the OLR report.
Yeah, so Dallas, look-ahead line, -2.5. My party number is only -1 for Dallas. The markets were 2.5/3 last night, and obviously after the Cowboys looked as crappy as they did against San Fran, the money's come for LA. I wrote it in big, bold headlines. Can't trust Dak versus a good defense. 4 turnovers for Dallas in that ballgame, but of course, Chargers don't have a good defense. They got lots of good players. They don't have a good defense. And of course, Dallas, I really want to see some of the quotes from that locker room, not after the game. I want to see some Monday and Tuesday quotes from Dallas because they were embarrassed. They were humiliated. And wanted to, it was like a step-up game and they got smacked. I want to see if there's a potential hangover for Dallas. I didn't get a sense of that with what I read last night. And of course, Dallas had allowed, 10.3 points per game coming into that game. And then they faced a real offense and all of a sudden it wasn't. And say what you want about the Chargers, they got a real offense. And LA healthier. They had a bunch of guys out in that win over the Raiders before the bye week. And one would anticipate that a good handful of those guys will be able to return this week. So we're seeing the markets not downgrade Dallas a little bit. We'll see what that Chargers injury report looks like in a day or two, but I would not be surprised at all if LA continues to take at least a little bit of money, even though this might be a nice bounce back spot for a Cowboys team off a humiliating loss on national TV.
Guys, fire any questions below in the comments section. We got one here from Guitar Rat, Teddy. Question for Teddy: what are the best spots/situations or other actionable info that gets missed by the math guys in their models? What are the best situations?
That's a really interesting question. And it's one that I would like to think about for a minute before I'm sure there's a bunch. Mm-hmm. But because the wise guys, you notice the division sandwiches, and that's your classic bad spot in the NFL. Brutal division game. Now you're a big favorite the next week against some nobody, and then another brutal division game coming after. And that big game where you're a favorite against nobody is the team where you tend to come out flat. Those tend to be bad spots. Or maybe it's the other way around. You're a big dog or someone in the game you can't compete. You have a divisional matchup, and then you got to really step up in class, and you have another divisional matchup. That middle game, that sandwich spot, those are spots that everybody tends to look for as being flat spots for teams and negative spots. And that's something that's held true for a long, long time. But that's only one. That's the one that's popping in my head right here first. There are many others. It's a really good question, but it's one that I have to think about before I answer properly or fully.
Okay, fair enough, Teddy. And you mentioned it just quickly with the Raiders game when we were breaking it down in the opening line report. Anything you want to throw out with the Monday nighter, Green Bay Packers, Las Vegas Raiders, Raiders -2 in the hook, 45.5 being the total?
Yeah, so we've seen Raiders money and we've seen over money for this bug. The markets, the broader markets just don't like Green Bay very much. We've seen money fairly consistently coming against the Packers, but the money here is all about Jimmy G. Jimmy G upgraded to probable and certainly a veteran starting quarterback against Jordan Love, who's been solid but hit or miss so far. And in theory, it's supposed to be a circle the wagons game for Vegas at home. I can understand why the money has come for the Raiders. I've got to play on that game. You get that right now at WagerTalk or sportsmemo.com. We've seen over money as well, and that also has to do with Jimmy G being back in the lineup. Aiden O'Connell looked great in the preseason. Well, so did Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and neither one of them in the regular season could do a damn thing with the football. So the Raiders with their starting QB back, in theory, over money shown for this one, but not anymore. 45.5 has been, it's not going higher. At least not right now. I'm not seeing any sense that this total is still moving up.
He's Teddy Covers. I'm Drew Martin. Guys, that's going to do it for the NFL opening line report. Teddy, anything you want to throw out here before we shut this down?
Yeah, just real quick, let me give you that promo code just in case you missed it. Football video promo TC10 at checkout. Gets you $10 off any daily package, any one-day pass. It's good only on the weekend, Saturday or Sunday this next week. So here you are watching NFL opening line report. Take advantage. TC10 at checkout. You get my NFL package. Take $10 off the full day pass. And guys, I want to say this again because every week I'm amazed. Thank you for all the comments. You guys have made a really good effort of getting in there every week. And even just to say comment, I appreciate them all. I try to go in. I've been in, Drew and I have both been in there 3-4 times out the course of the week. Try to answer as many as we can. The comments help us with our YouTube algorithms. The likes help us with our YouTube algorithms. And if you like the show, that's how you can thank. So we appreciate it so much. Best of luck this week. Thanks for watching.
Absolutely. I second that, guys. Even if nothing comes to mind after you're watching the show, like Teddy said, and some of you do this, just comment for the algorithm. That works as well. So in the comments below, guys, let us know you're watching. Where from? That's always cool as well. Please smash that like button. He's Teddy Covers. I'm Drew Martin. That does it for the opening line report for this week. We'll be back next week. Come back and join us.